Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining this week's series of Braggin Boldly, the time where we come together and give a little bit of storytelling and educational information focused on equity, work, leadership, and getting paid. So today we have a really exciting topic. We're actually chatting with Zane Miller about the future of work and how ChatGPT is going to revolutionize the employee experience. And without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. So as I said, I am your host today, Morgan McCoy. I am the owner and CEO of Braggin Right. And with me today, I have Zane Miller, who is a staff software engineer. Zane, why don't you come on and introduce yourself?
Hey, Morgan. As Morgan said, my name's Zane. I am a software engineer by trade. I've been doing that for about 10 years, and I am very excited to be here discussing this.
Awesome. Thanks, Zane. So I think with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and we're going to go ahead and dig into our content here. So first things first, Zane, I was wondering if you could give us a little bit of an overview about how AI works and how we should think of it in terms of our work today.
Yeah, absolutely. So the form of AI that is gaining a lot of traction these days is what's known as these large language models. So basically the way that these work is they take these massive data sets. So the one that we're going to be talking mostly about today probably is ChatGPT, which was trained effectively on the public internet at large. And they basically take this massive amount of information, process all of it. This isn't a process that there's a few different ways that these things are trained sometimes. Effectively, it's sometimes the information they're fed is contextualized and sometimes it's not. So like ChatGPT is kind of non-contextualized information. What this means is nobody's going through and telling the AI, hey, this is an article about this or this thing. They're untagged. It's not noted as like, the person here is writing in a passive tone or whatever. It is effectively left to its own devices to find trends and determinations. So at a really basic level, they're extremely complicated statistical analysis engines. They basically run through huge data sets and find patterns. And then from those patterns can reproduce results in kind of a predictive manner based on, if you say, how do I make a cup of coffee? It can go through its huge database of all of the things that it has ingested that have told you, here's how to make a cup of coffee. And it runs through the steps and it goes, based on all the things I've seen, this is the most likely response or thing to come next from that kind of query or set of statements.
Yeah, I want to dig into one piece of that there. You said the most likely response. So that tells me that ChatGPT or AI is really interested in what is likely as opposed to what is true. Can you speak a little bit to like, should we always be trusting ChatGPT or AI?
Right. So there's a trend to kind of personify things like this of like the AI thinks or it has decided. The reality of this is, for the most part, when you ask it, how do I make a cup of coffee? It doesn't understand the concept of what is coffee, what is even a cup or whatever. It simply knows these are the words or phrases or processes that most frequently follow them. To that end, it can produce a surprisingly accurate and helpful output. However, its output is only as good as the information that it has been given in order to kind of process that. So it can draw inferences from across many different data sources to try to create kind of a novel response. But you can see in like some of the earlier versions where this does have the potential to generate errors, such as things that we might consider fairly trivial or things that like computers are actually typically very good at, such as basic arithmetic. Sometimes these models actually generate false or incorrect outputs because they have processed, like the way that they do their processing is not based on the concept of, I know this is a number, I know this is another number. When you add them, they come out this way, but rather I see this thing, I see another symbol, and then I see this other one. In all the data that I've processed, the most likely thing that's going to result from that series of items is this. Yeah, so to that point, like they are surprisingly like efficient and accurate at generating results, but they are occasionally incorrect in their like kind of the response that you will get from them. So it's important to analyze like logically that response and kind of think through it with a critical eye.
Yeah. I think when we have considered like either ChatGPT or AI, we often come to these conversational AI models, but companies are using AI in different ways, both conversational AI and other types of AI. How are you seeing either companies that you worked for or other companies in tech or throughout the kind of labor market work with AI in a variety of ways?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a ton of different use cases here. Just as you mentioned, I think there's kind of two main avenues. Is there's the conversational usage of them, in which you can effectively treat these models as almost like another coworker or like an interactive system that you work through. There's a bunch of sub kind of categories under this, or like sub usages in terms of doing things to help you achieve your your needs within your job more effectively, or even for companies to present these to end users and let the users interact with them directly. And then on the other side, there's sort of the less conversational, more processing heavy, where we say, you know, we have a big set of data that we need to draw some inference from or do some processing on. We can point these models at it. We don't need to necessarily like have a conversation with it or ask it, you know, multiple different things. We want to fine tune it to one particular task that we're asking it to do, set it off on that, and then get the result, and then maybe tweak those inputs or that configuration and come back to it. A lot of how I've seen it being used in my work is across a lot of different avenues. So, you know, we like on the kind of more processing heavy side, I work for a large payments company, and we have a fraud product that is basically designed to detect when users are attempting to run fraudulent transactions. And we have for many, many years used AI in that process to basically identify the patterns of, in retrospect, when we have something that we know is fraudulent, we can tag it as such, and it can then our machine learning system can go through and identify the patterns from, okay, these are like transactions that we know to be fraudulent. Here are ones that we know to be legitimate, and determine patterns. So now it can look at a set of behavior and say, based on the history I've seen, this looks to match the pattern of what we expect to be fraudulent or not. So we can flag those automatically. On the other side of it, the conversational side, one of the things I see this replacing a lot is you can feed in to these systems, you know, significant amounts of data that is specific to your business or your use case, and effectively train them up on, similar to how you would train up like a new hire at your company, train them up on the like processes and details and operations that are specific to your company. And in particular, one of the places I see this happening a lot is around like support systems. For many, many companies, support is a really expensive thing to run. And so it ends up being, you know, if you're a small company, it might end up just being the one or two people that are running that company responding to user emails. This is great for like a really personalized thing, but if your business starts getting a lot of customers really quickly, it doesn't scale up well. It's really hard to keep up with that volume. You can pretty easily feed your processes. Most support runs on kind of a script, right? I'm having this problem. Okay, did you try these things? What was the outcome of that? These models are very, very good at taking that sort of structure and being able to run it automatically. So, you know, one thing that we're seeing a lot of the potential for is being able to use these conversational AIs as support agents for companies. When customers need help, they can come through and basically have a conversation with the AI and hopefully get the help they need. And if it can't, then it can escalate them to a higher tier of support where they're going to be able to get more dedicated assistance.
Yeah. You've mentioned how companies are using AI, whether that's through this entry-level layer of support or through training data models, but how can we as kind of modern employees think about using ChatGPT or conversational AI to supercharge our own work?
Yeah. So, I mean, they are really, really good at, the point I think that I've probably made over and over again is they're really good at assimilating information and kind of distilling that down. So, one thing that I have a lot of coworkers that do with them is basically take like raw notes from a meeting, and ask the AI to turn those into a list of action items or a summary of what happened in the meeting that they can then send out as kind of a post-meeting report. Here were the things that we discussed. Here were the action items. This means, you like being in a meeting can be more engaged in the meeting without having to try to organize all this information. You can just take really quick raw notes, feed them into the system, and then get a really useful result out of that, as well as you don't have to add, I'm sure many of us who spend a lot of time in meetings have experienced that, like, okay, I'm done with this meeting. Now I have to spend 15, 20 minutes organizing all of the information from it into something, that's a task that you can now defer off to a machine to do for you. Likewise, being able to do things like using these to kind of work through a set of ideas or help solve a problem, because they are conversational models. One of the big advantages of them is they keep context. Unlike something like a search engine where you may want to know how to achieve a task, you can search Google for that. You're going to get a big list of results, and you have to kind of go through each of those, pick out the bits and pieces that are interesting or useful to you, and put those together. And a lot of times you'll get things that have, a part here, a part there, or you're kind of going through this process of, oh, okay, I know what I need to do in this front part. Now I need to do something else. Because these AI models have a lot of the same data that something like a search engine does, but they also keep a history effectively of your conversation. So you can ask it, let's say you want to bake a recipe. This is maybe a contrived example, but you could ask it, how do I make like a Black Forest cake? And it might give you a set of recipes and or a set of steps for the recipe. And one of the first things that it might ask you to do is like, beat some flour and eggs together. And you can tell it, what should I do if I don't have eggs? And it will give you an updated response to this. And then in further steps, it knows, well, you told it, I don't have any eggs. So now I'm going to kind of deal with that in later steps as it's coming through. So this is a big advantage because it means that you can really kind of bounce ideas off of it. I also have a lot of coworkers that use it for basically kind of ideating, is asking it, how should I design this system? Or how should I, like, what's the best approach for doing this thing? What if I have this additional constraint on it now? And it can be a really good way to like, kind of refine your thinking through like in a conversational way, through a system that has a lot more context than you might be able to do just like writing something out in a document.
Yeah, we keep throwing around the word like conversational when it comes to specifically using like ChatGPT. But for those of us who are not super familiar with conversational AI, or maybe even hesitant to kind of even start digging into it, how can we think about framing our language as we're talking to the chatbot to meet success with whatever it is that we're asking for?
Yeah, this is actually like one of the kind of big advancements that's coming along, is that it matters a lot less how you frame these things. In the early iterations of these, there was a lot of there was a necessity for, you have to know, similar to in early search engines, you have to know how to pose your questions to it in a way that's going to get you useful results. And it's interesting now because like most of these are moving to be, it's very conversational. You can basically just ask the questions in the same way that you would ask a coworker or a colleague or a friend about, if you wanted information about something, being able to just present it in a very human way. Like any other thing, I mean, I think there is a degree of it's a tool. Like there are approaches that are going to gain you more or less success in it, but really like experimentation, and it all depends on what you're trying to do with it. If you're engaging with a system like this, just asking it, if I want to do something one way, seeing what kind of results you get there, ask it a different way, see what kind of results you get there.
Yeah. As we're talking about AI really being a tool, how do you see it playing into the toolbox of employees of the future?
Yeah, I mean, it's not going away. This is definitely going to become a thing that in some form or another people will be engaging with on a regular basis. I know I hear a lot of the kind of paranoia of like, oh, it's going to replace jobs or it's going to take these people out. I don't find that to be true. I think it's certainly going to shift the way that many people do their jobs, but my suspicion is, I don't have the answers to this, of course, but my suspicion is for most people, like chances are you're probably not going to be like at least required as part of your job to do something like pull open ChatGPT and run things through it. However, it's likely that many of the like tools that you already use as part of your job today will start having more and more of these things built into them, and you'll be able to leverage those within those tools. So something that I could see being a thing in the future is like, let's say that you have to work in Excel a lot as part of your job. Excel, you can do really, really powerful stuff with Excel, but it's not always really obvious how to do that. They could add a feature that lets you express in more natural language what the thing you want to do is. I would like a report that is the average of all of these columns broken down by week, and it can generate you the formula to do that in your spreadsheet rather than you having to go through all the spreadsheet documentation, learn all of the really specific ways to do this stuff. So yeah, I don't anticipate that like, there is one particular specific tool that is going to become the de facto, everybody uses this, but I think you will start to be exposed to these more and more through the existing tools over time.
So what I'm hearing is we'll probably see more conversational AI and these kinds of chatbots in the tools that we're using on an everyday basis. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the degree of conversationality with them will probably vary, but it's sort of the key piece is the natural language bit where you can ask things in a much more kind of human way.
Yeah. I have heard AI and conversational AI be referred to as your new intern who knows everything but sometimes lies to you. Would you say that that's true?
Yeah, I think that's an accurate assessment. Yeah, I mean, it is, these systems are really pretty phenomenal with the outputs that they can generate. But it is, as with all sources of information, trust but verify, I think is the term people use a lot, is it can be a really good way to like get a quick result for something, but you got to do the kind of general standard due diligence. Does this make sense, right? Does the thing that it's telling me is the case make sense? If I asked it to add 5 + 5 and it told me that the answer was 300, even if I wasn't sure of the actual answer, that doesn't sound like it's correct. So I should look into that, as well as, depending on what you're using it for, don't just blindly trust the results. Particularly, if you're trying to use it to like help make a decision about doing something, or something that might have further reaching implications. Definitely like verify the information that you're being given.
Yeah. It sounds like there always needs to be a human layer of reviewing and checking anything that is coming out of ChatGPT. Do you see there being like a major loss of jobs with the onset of conversational AI?
I definitely don't. I mean, I think yeah, I've heard many different pieces of technology that, oh, it's going to make this job obsolete or whatever. And I think to a degree, like you could make an argument that that's true in some shapes, but the reality is it's not going to make these jobs go away. It's just going to change how they're done. There are exceptions to that. I mean, I think, companies are looking to cut costs wherever they can if they find an opportunity to be able to replace a person that they have to pay with a machine they don't, or that they have to pay a significantly lower fee for. People will look for those opportunities, but by and large, these systems are not like, these are not autonomous systems. You can certainly build autonomy around them. That requires somebody to do that implementation, but as it stands right now, I can't like go ask ChatGPT to, hey, on the 1st of April every year, please do my taxes, and it's just going to do that. It still is going to require a person running through and interacting with it, generating inputs to it, taking the output from it, and moving that into whatever system is necessary. Over time, more and more of that will be able to be automated, but somebody has to do that automation, as well as there's still always a role for what the people that were helping to like do the things that this can help automate now. What that role is may shift, but I don't see it just going away.
It's good to hear that we're always going to need, or at least for the foreseeable future, need that extra layer of human interaction. Kind of with that, I would love to offer any like questions or opportunity for questions from the audience if they have any, but I do have a question for you that we'll like get started with. Audience, if you have any questions, feel free to either come off mute or drop them into the chat. But my question for you is really, how should we be thinking about bias when it comes to AI, and is that a concern we should keep in mind as we're using it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question. So this is like one of the big concerns that people, and like very valid concern that people have around these right now is, as discussed, these models are only as good as the information that goes into them. And unfortunately, a lot of the information that is fed in right now is subject to a lot of existing biases. And that means that even with best intentions, the outputs that these systems generate can be subject to those biases as well. If you ask it to draw you a picture of the average person, it's going to only be able to do that based on what the average, as far as it knows it from its input, is. And that means that if you feed it in a set of data that has a vast majority of people that is not reflective of the actual distribution of humanity, instead just the digital distribution of humanity, then its output is not going to mirror the real world correctly. It's only going to mirror the information that it was given. So being really cognizant of that while kind of interpreting results from this is really, really important.
Well, on that note, I'd love to challenge our audience to go out this week and play with ChatGPT and let us know how it goes. That might look like taking some meeting notes and dropping it in to ChatGPT and coming up with a summary, challenging it to come up with writing prompts for you. It can write stories. I actually have been using it to aid in blog post creation. So there's so much out there that you can do with ChatGPT and conversational AI. And I would encourage all of our audience members today to go check it out and let us know how your interactions with ChatGPT goes. Any final thoughts for us, Zane, before I close this out?
Yeah, I mean, this is like a really exciting, as a person who works in technology, this is definitely an exciting like kind of point of time to be in the industry. Like there are a lot of trends in technology that sort of get hyped up as like the next big thing or going to be revolutionary. I have my own degree of tepid optimism, or tempered optimism rather, that this is one of the items of tech that does have the capability to create a degree of a pattern shift in how we interact with technology. Yeah, I don't believe, I am definitely not the person who buys into the mega tech hype. I'm not here to tell you that, oh yeah, AI is going to change the world or is going to revolutionize, the way that everybody does their job. But I think when we look back, we will be able to see, kind of the era that we're living in right now as a point in time in which the way in which we made certain interactions is shifting. Whether that's for better or worse is still an open question, or what the overall impact of that is. But I do believe, this is it's exciting to be part of a time where things are changing.
Things sure are changing. Hopefully we won't see any kind of onset of Skynet anytime soon, and that it sticks mostly to the generation of random images or potential AI art. There's so many other things that we could talk about when it comes to AI, but I'm going to go ahead and close this out here. Zane, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your thoughts around conversational AI with us on Braggin Boldly today. I'm going to share my screen and give a couple of quick shout outs here. So coming up next week, we have a conversation with Katie Jenkins about how to survive a layoff without totally losing your shit. This is something that I'm very excited about. And Katie, I know, has been laid off actually multiple times. So she's going to be a great person to lead that conversation for us. So please join us there next Wednesday at 12 p.m., a little bit of a different time. So go ahead and register for that event at bragginright.com/events. Hopefully we'll see you there. And if you want to follow Braggin Boldly, we are all over the internet, so you can come join, check out our website, join our email list. We're on Etsy, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. These recordings are always put up on YouTube, and so you can find us there as well. If you're rewatching on YouTube already, hey there, thanks for joining in. If you enjoyed this session, there is a QR code where you can leave some feedback if you want to snap a picture of that QR code. And then I would be remiss not to mention that these Braggin Boldly events are brought about by the Braggin Right team, which is myself, and we offer career advancement coaching services and resume templates for the modern employee who are looking to get themselves paid more, who are looking to command respect for themselves in the workplace, and looking to up-level their own experience as an employee. So please reach out if you're interested in any of those things. Thanks to all of our audience members today, and thanks again, Zane, for joining.
Thank you so much for having me, Morgan.
Thanks, everybody. See ya.